All right, there we go. Jackie, I guess we can start now, right?
Right.
Okay, cool. Well, welcome everyone to our May meeting. Thank you for being here tonight. We have some very exciting speakers here. Um, but before that, let's get into the preamble of the Constitution, right? Um, but yeah, that's what we have decided a couple of meetings ago. Instead of doing the Pledge of Allegiance, we're now doing the preamble, um, just to reflect the times. So feel free to come off mute and join me in reading the preamble. So I'll just begin. We, the people of the United States of
States of
America,
America,
in
In
order
in
to
order to
form
form a
a
more
more
perfect
perfect
union,
union, establish
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 justice,
justice,
and
ensure
ensure
domestic
domestic
tranquility,
tranquility,
provide
provide
for the
common
common
defenses,
defense,
promote
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 the
the
general
general
welfare,
welfare,
and
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 secure
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 the
the
blessings
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 of
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 liberty
liberty
liberty for
for
ourselves
ourselves
and
ourselves
our
and
and
our
posterity.
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 Do
To
Do
ordain
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 and
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 establish
establish
establish this
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 Constitution
Constitution
for
for
the
the
United
United
States
States of
of
America.
America.
Perfect.
Thank you, Richard.
Of course. Love that. So again, thank you all for being here. We do have the assembly member on her way, as Michelle very kindly updated us. Um, and she should be here in, 15-ish minutes, it sounds like, give or take. But before then, we have also a very equally exciting speaker, Matt LaBrot. Matt, there we go. You've been spotlighted. Matt is a former employee at Tesla, knows the company very well, and also is now, can we say officially, the face of the Tesla Employees Against Elon campaign. I'll let you take it away, Matt. Thank you for being here.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for having me. I am the unfortunate face of Tesla Employees Against Elon. But the reason I'm the face is because I'm the one that got fired for all of this. So, first of all, thank you all for all of the work that you've done for Tesla takedowns. It is something that I firmly believe in. My father-in-law has been out there doing this, and it was very interesting to be inside the building trying to help drive sales while also trying to support the people out there trying to reverse sales. So here's the quick elevator pitch of what happened. After working for Tesla for over 5.5 years, I became increasingly disenfranchised to Elon and the whole situation. And despite our mission to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy, this guy's just out here ruining it all. So after a few different things, we'll even, the salute or awkward gesture, depending upon what side of the camp that you land on there. I assumed that Tesla would just go ahead and take care of this, that would be the end of it, and we'd all get to move on. And unfortunately, as most of you may know, they decided to double down. And instead of stop making him the face of Tesla, they made him the face all over again. Public presentations, tweets, posts, everything to just reaffirm how much Tesla believes in this man. Um, for myself, I was a sales and delivery training program manager, which means my job and my team's job was to create all of the sales and delivery training for all of North America. So any sales pitches, any product knowledge, anything that helped Tesla sell cars more, that was this guy right here. And despite all of the work that I did there, it was time to take a stand. Richard, if you could do me a favor and maybe just toss the link in the chat. So what we decided to do, this is a conversation. We posted a letter is what we did. We posted a letter on a website, Tesla Employees Against Elon. And this letter is a compilation of conversations that I've had with Tesla employees across North America. When you're a North American program manager, you're talking to people in Florida, Texas, New Jersey, everywhere. And of course, I'm based in the Bay, so lots of Fremont talk as well. So I took all of these conversations that we've had and I created this open letter. If there's anybody from Tesla HR on the call, I will say I was the only person who wrote the letter. I was the only person who posted it. So we'll get that out there. But it is ideas shared across North America by a lot of different employees. So I posted this letter, and basically it is just a statement that that Elon's brand is ruined. He's pulling Tesla down with him. And I would much rather keep all of these American jobs, keep my job, and keep this company that is trying to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy going and get that guy out. Obviously, he didn't take that super well. I was fired 48 hours later, and my X account, Pro Tesla, not Elon, was suspended indefinitely after about 4 to 5 days of posting. So, in case anybody was wondering if X is all about free speech, turns out they are not. Um, so that's kind of where we are today. This story's been picked up a decent amount. I'll share a few different links in the chats with Washington Post has covered it. They did a great piece about how tech companies used to be proponents of change, and those employees used to feel empowered to steer the direction that these companies were going. And now it's the exact opposite. There is a culture of shushing everybody down as much as possible and making sure that they don't rock the boat. And so those companies can keep raking in the cash. So before I pause and do any questions or anything like that, the last thing I just want to say is Tesla has fully made it clear that they will not be separating from Elon. Despite anything you may have read about looking for a different CEO or anything like that, they just passed bylaws that no longer allow Tesla shareholders to sue the board for letting the company tank. And no company does that and then replaces their CEO. So if anybody thought they were going to get their Saturdays off and not have to do these Tesla takedown protests anymore, unfortunately, you're wrong. We need you out there. So we're going to have to keep those going until probably at least the middle of July, when Q2 earnings come out. I'll be able to take my victory lap around, and there we go. That's kind of me. That's what we've been up to.
So I'm
Thanks.
curious about, the board members that, stick so closely to Elon. I mean, what do you have any names of, particular tech bros that are on the board that support him so vehemently?
Yeah, well, the cool thing is you can see everybody who's on the board. There's his brother. I'm pretty sure his mom is also on the board. But the thing to remember about this board is that they have made an ungoshly amount of money from this. Their current president of the board just recently sold $400 million worth of profitable shares. So even if they're riding this thing to the ground, what do they have to worry about? They just got $400 million. So there used to be this expectation of a fiduciary responsibility to shareholders and all of that. That's not how this really is working anymore. So they're just going to let this thing crash. And then you'd ask, well, they'd never be able to serve on a board again. So what? They have $400 million. When you have $400 million, you don't really need to do much else.
Ellis has his hand up.
Ellis?
My
For $2 million, I could retire.
Yeah.
We protest outside the Tesla place at Dublin every Saturday.
But that isn't why I have my hand up.
Right.
I have my hand up because I know quite a few people who do demonstrations and political activists. And I ask them almost all the time, what is it that brings you out here? What is it that motivates you? You seem to have a burning there, but where did the burning come from? And I'll just tell you something that Teddy Roosevelt said. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So the question is, why do you personally care about this movement?
Yeah, because the company that I worked for 5.5 years that had the biggest end of quarters. I've worked more hours. I've stayed up until 5 a.m. programming code. I've done all of these different things, all with this thought that we're all on this mission together. And then that just starts to get ripped away from you. And not only does it get ripped away from you, this job that I used to be incredibly proud of, I meet people over the years. My wife would introduce me to friends, and it's always fun to talk about working for Tesla. Or it was. now I bump into people and, I'm playing a round of golf with somebody and they ask you what you do. And you have to be like, oh, I work for Tesla, but, and then you say all these things. That never used to be the case. This used to be a dream come true for so many people to work here. And again, it's also really hard to say, let's tear down this company that's done all this incredible stuff for sustainability. And so that hurts. So this really came from, in my original post, you'll see when you go and read it, it's actually not super political. I really did my best to stick to it as like a business conversation, and hopefully talking to some other folks that may care more about the business than the political side of it. But at the end of the day, this company that I love is being ruined. Its reputation's being ruined. And I firmly believe that justifiably, if they don't make any changes, this company is not going to exist in 365 days. And Texas has invested millions and millions of dollars into getting jobs there. Fremont, all the tax cuts that Fremont has given to Tesla over the years for all these jobs, that's not going to be worth it anymore.
So they're killing your baby.
Yeah,
Totally.
totally.
The real short answer is, and anybody could understand that. They're killing your
Yeah,
baby.
yeah.
You've nurtured this baby for 5 or so years. Thank you very much.
Of course. Yeah.
Jackie, go
Hi.
for it.
My name's Jackie, and my question is, I've been attending these Tesla takedowns as well, but always in the back of my mind is the fear of what it's doing to the employees themselves. And I worry about the employees, but I really want to get Musk out. So, I mean, from your perspective, are we doing the right thing? Is this what we should be doing? Is there different methods that we should be going after to put pressure?
No, this is exactly what we should be doing. And there are lots of things, and somebody even talked about, the Fremont economy, the struggles there. Like, this is the right thing to do. Freaking capitalism 101 has told us the whole time to vote with your wallet, right? We can even think about what happened with Bud Light. And though I don't love how all of that went down, when they had an issue where the company went a direction that their consumer didn't want to go in, the consumer said, we're not buying it anymore. They had those issues. And then the company decided to right the ship and go back. They hired Post Malone and Kid Rock and they got those sales back up. It is insane to me that we haven't just done the same thing. Let's donate, $20 million to Mr. Beast to go plant some trees and get back on track here and kick this guy out. I saw somebody comment something about Tesla stock. I will, talk about the fact that, Elon just no longer being the CEO isn't enough for a lot of people. I talked to a lot of people in Dublin the last time I was there, and they want him to divest. They want to do all of these different things. And I think that we do have to be as realistic as possible. It's really difficult to buy anything in 2025 without accidentally giving money to a billionaire that you hate. And yeah, that totally sucks. And I hope that the government and all the work that you guys are doing will hopefully adjust that. But when it comes to the jobs, when it comes to keeping the money focused on these environmentally friendly companies, I would love to see that start over again. And unfortunately, we'll probably never be able to get Elon to fully divest. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Jan, I see your hand up.
And then there's also a comment from Manav in the chat as well.
Hi, this is Bill Potts, Jan's husband. I wanted to ask you, when Alameda County was requiring him to comply with the COVID requirements, is that kind of what sent him over the edge?
That's what set him over the edge with his "we're going to go to Texas" shenanigans. I actually think that the reason he went red is because, unfortunately, Blue didn't invite him to the table. They had this EV summit at the White House and he wasn't invited. And sure, the guy is kooky as all get out, but this was also 4 years ago. So it was maybe a little less kooky then. But it's insane to host a summit about electric vehicles and clean energy and not invite the guy that has done all of this work for clean energy. And I think that's one of the things that probably snapped him a bit. But that's a doctor needs to probably answer that one a little bit more. But yeah, I think that's that the reference I made about him not being invited to that, I think that really, really stung, and then decided to go the other direction.
And real quickly, what was it like to work there? Because you hear some not great things about, especially the people working in the factory. What are the working conditions really like at Tesla?
Yeah, you hear working conditions, and I think things like Amazon factories where you can't go to the bathroom, people are peeing in bottles and stuff like that. It wasn't really that. It was more 20-hour days at end of quarter, the most unrealistic expectations that you've seen as far as like delivery numbers or productivity for employee. But also, you get a little of this Stockholm syndrome going on because you're all, again, rallying behind this thing that you think you're excited about. And some days you got to take a break and cry under a desk. And then other days you get out there and you do your thing. So I reference this in a few different articles, but it is simultaneously the absolute best place that I've ever worked and the absolute worst place that I've ever worked. And there's a give and take there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So the Tesla crash job leaving Fremont, I think the Fremont part for the factory is actually really interesting because a lot of employees get bussed into Fremont from Merced and Modesto. They take these buses. So it's actually also really going to hurt those communities because where in the heck in Modesto are you going to work that pays you $38 an hour? With full benefits. And that was huge, not even just for Fremont, but for all of the communities around. So I do think it's going to hurt. And the Bay, unfortunately, has taken so many tech hits over the last 18 months to 2 years that's just going to continue to hurt even more. Cool thing is there is a ton of money in EV startups still. There's Lucid and Rivian and all this kind of stuff. They will swoop up employees. Lucid, Rivian, hit me up. Still need a job. But so like there are jobs that these folks can fill. But if the company completely goes, it won't be a one-to-one replacement. That's for sure. And I do fear for Central California more than the Bay. I think the Bay's got AI. They've got all these other things that they're working on. Your Merceds, your Modestos, those types of places. It's gonna be a bummer.
Thanks, Matt. And a reminder, if you have a question, feel free to put it in chat or raise your hand. I see one more question in chat from Ramona. Thanks, Ramona. Matt, what do you expect to see with the July financial numbers as a result of our protests? Could you expand on that?
Yeah, I've got great news. As a lot of people have talked to me about, what more can we be doing? Like I said, you guys are crushing it. You have made it super uncomfortable for people to drive a brand new Tesla. And also, luckily for us, the Model Y, the most popular car in the world, just got a cosmetic update. So it is very visibly obvious that somebody has purchased this Model Y in 2025. And they're just not doing that. This car should have been the best-selling car in 2025. It may not even crack the top 10 now. So you guys are doing a fantastic job there. If you see anybody driving a new Model Y, just remember they made that conscious decision. They can't slap a "I bought this before he went crazy" sticker on that because they didn't. So that's a decision to still continue to support Tesla in this time. I'm also going to toss another link in the chat of there's a few different EV websites that will post the best EV deals for every month. So we want to make sure people don't have that out, right? Because actually Tesla is a pretty affordable car now. It's pretty great for the environment, all these things. I want to make sure that people know that these other options exist out there for them and that them choosing to buy a Tesla is saying, I fully support everything that Elon Musk is doing. And normally you wouldn't be able to make that message because there's a separation between company and CEO, what they do, publicly. But Tesla decided that that's not the case. They decided that these things are intertwined together. So we have to just continue to remind everybody of that. The company had options. It absolutely had options. It chose not to do those. So it's going to sink. The numbers are going to be really rough. There are a lot of hypothetical things that will make numbers look potentially better, but those things don't exist yet. So if we're actually just chalking pure sales numbers, it's going to be rough. And that's where Texas, is going to start cutting jobs. And I don't want to tell anybody in Texas that their job is cut. I'd much rather fire somebody in Fremont than in Texas. So that's going to be tough for them, and we'll see what direction that goes.
Thanks, Matt. I see the assembly member is now here. Do you want to say anything, have a minute or two just to wrap up any last thoughts?
I'm happy to yield the floor to an assembly member. I feel like I should definitely go. I don't, imposter syndrome here now that the assembly member's here. So.
Well, I have one question. I hope you landed a great new job somewhere.
Nope, still hunting, but the hunt is on. So.
Well, thank you so much, Matt. We really appreciate your time here. If anybody does have any other questions for Matt, feel free to put in the chat. I'm sure he'll look through chat and rummage through an answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep up the good work. I hope the whole world doesn't have to get worse before it can get better. So keep doing all the work that y'all are doing, and we're here for you.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Matt. Thanks for the work that you do. All right,
Thanks.
Jackie, I wonder if we can spotlight.
Yes, there
we
she
go.
is. Beautiful face. Let me spotlight her.
Well, hello, Assembly member. Thank you so much for joining us and taking the time out of what I'm sure is a very, very busy schedule up in SAC. But everybody knows Assembly member Rebecca Bauer-Kahan is a friend of the club and has been working for her constituents very hard for a very long time. And I won't say any more because I don't want to waste your time. So, Assembly member, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. But while you were talking, I figured out how to change my view. I'm like, I don't just want to see me. Now I can see all of you. So that made me happy. It's really good to be with you guys. Can you hear me okay? I'm gonna make sure my headset's working. Okay, good. So good to see you. That was fascinating. I was eating my dinner because, as Michelle may have told you, we got out of session at 5:45 and I just walked in. So I was listening to that and finishing my dinner. It's good to be with you. Crazy times. Appreciate everything you guys are doing. As he said, the grassroots are really where it's at right now. I wish we could say there's more leadership coming from the top, but it really seems to be a bottom-up movement right now, and you guys are a huge part of that. So thank you for everything you're doing to give me hope for the future for me and my family. So for those of you that don't know me, although I'm looking at the names and I think I know most of you, if not all of you, I am your assembly member. It has now been 6.5 years since I became your assembly member, which seems wild and crazy. And as Richard said, definitely a friend of the club. My first endorsement in my race was the Tri-Valley Democratic Club. I know that I stand in great company with Eric Swalwell when I say that. So you guys I like to believe you make good choices, but obviously I'm biased in thinking that. It's been a crazy journey over the last 6 years. I came in during Trump 1 in 2018. I then dealt with a global pandemic and now Trump 2. So it's been a roller coaster of lots of different challenges, but the job is to face them. And I couldn't, be more grateful that I'm in a position to do anything I can at this moment. Although, the state has very little power on the things that are coming at us, but we are doing the best we can. And we can talk a little bit about the budget because that's where I think we're taking the biggest hits and where we can also try to focus our resources in ways that protect Californians who are under attack. But as many of you know, I ran for office in 2018 in the wake of Trump's first victory, in part because I was an environmental regulatory lawyer and I really understood what deregulation would do to our efforts to combat climate change and wanted to bring sort of that view and that expertise to Sacramento. And I still think, hopefully I'm bringing a talent that is useful to my colleagues and to the state as we face this era. I am the chair of the Privacy and Consumer Protection Committee, so I spend a lot of my time on that. Our main focus, I took over a year ago, has been artificial intelligence policy. So I am overseeing the Assembly's vision and execution on all AI policy. The other big piece that we do in that committee is social media policy. So all of the laws that we're passing to protect children online go through that committee. And then consumer protection is some of my favorite bills. So we did a bill, for example, that, you can't have an auto renewal of a subscription without a notice that says we're about to auto renew. You have an opportunity to cancel, so that Californians are not just paying these auto renewals without thinking about them, because many people, with given the opportunity, would save money. So those kind of bills that really are consumer focused, we get to hear in the committee. And then I sit on 4 other committees. So I sit on Judiciary, which hears all bills related to civil proceedings in the state. Environmental Safety and Toxic Materials, which I was on at the beginning of my tenure, was taken off and I got put back on. And I love that because that's actually what I did as an attorney. It really focuses on clean water, clean soil, clean air, and hazardous waste and hazardous materials. And then Business and Professions, which is a new committee for me. We oversee all the businesses that we regulate in the state. So docs, nurses, massage therapists. And I didn't know much about this committee. I was given, the speaker put me on it, but it's really interesting. So that's been a fun addition to my portfolio. And then I was appointed to the Joint Legislative Committee on Climate Change Policies, and our mandate is to negotiate the reauthorization of cap and trade. So that's a pretty big undertaking, and really a cornerstone of California's climate leadership that we're excited to make some improvements on, if you will. In addition to all of that, I'm moving 16 bills. 4 are in the Senate. It's funny, when my staff prepared my notes for tonight, they said 2 were in the Senate, but we got 2 more to the Senate today. So I now have 4 bills in the Senate. And one of the ones in the Senate is a bill on AI protection for copyright holders, which is a bill focused on how do we protect copyright in an age of AI, where we know these models are training on all of the materials that we've always believed are protected property right. And so that bill allows for a copyright holder to know whether an AI model was trained on their copyrighted works. I also got to the Senate today a bill on FAIR plan. So I, like many of my constituents, was non-renewed by my homeowner's insurance, and I'm on the FAIR plan. So I am now getting to understand the downsides to the FAIR plan. And one of the craziest things I experienced when I joined the FAIR plan was, busy mom, 3 kids, I could not sign up for auto pay, which is how we do all of our big bills in our house, because we're busy people. And as I started to have a conversation with my colleague who represents Altadena, where many, many people, as you know, lost their homes, he told me he was hearing that many people thought they were covered by the FAIR plan, didn't have auto pay, failed to pay, and now didn't have any coverage. And so we're doing a bill that requires the FAIR plan to have auto pay. So, that's just a good government bill as far as I'm concerned. We continue to focus on menopause. I've worked on menopause policy for a couple years now, and it's a real gender equity issue. It is an area of medicine that has never been focused on because women just do not get the same attention as men, especially in the healthcare space. So the bill would require 2 things: that insurance companies pay for menopausal care, and that doctors are trained to manage and understand women as we enter the menopausal transition. So that's a really exciting and fun piece of legislation. The governor vetoed it last year. So we are back with a vengeance. And this year, my sponsor is the one and only Halle Berry. So hopefully she and I can get the governor to sign the bill. I continue to work, and I've had this conversation with you guys a lot. I know it's something you pay a lot of attention to, which is our IOUs, our utilities, PG&E. I'm doing a bill on CPUC reform. CPUC is not doing their job in protecting ratepayers, which should be their #1 job. And so I'm doing a bill that would require real, meaningful judicial review of CPUC decisions. It's one of the only agencies where you cannot sue easily when they make a decision. In other agencies, you can go sue. You can have a court review an agency's decision. This is not the case. And so we're beefing up the judicial review process for the CPUC, because in my experience as an attorney, when people know they can be overturned on appeal, they behave well. So I don't even know if we'll need this tool. If it's available, I actually think the PUC will behave better. But 6 rate increases in 1 year is not behaving well if what you're supposed to be doing is taking care of ratepayers. I'm also doing, obviously, as chair of privacy, a lot of bills in the tech AI space. We are doing a bill on social media and kids' mental health, which is following the Surgeon General under President Biden recommended that we put warning labels on social media. And so this bill would do that for all Californians. You would get a warning label after 3 hours of use, which is when the research shows you start to have negative mental health impacts from use of social media. and then every hour thereafter for the day. Start your clock over the next day. Then I continue to work on automated decision systems and AI and how it can contain historic bias. For those that, you are in the backyard of Workday, which is one of sort of the leading automated decision tools, but they have really been at the forefront of responsible policies around this. And so when you train a tool to do hiring or lending or healthcare, you do it by giving it data, right? So data in, and then it makes a decision based on the data. And when you give historic data to an AI tool and say, learn what kind of person I want to hire, and you are a tech company with mostly male employees, the research has shown that the tool will learn you prefer men, and it will select out women, for example. And so one of the things that the best in class companies are doing is testing those systems before deployment to make sure those historic biases are not built into these decisions that are making most of the decisions in our life. 99% of companies now make every decision in your life with an AI tool. So it's really critical we don't have tools that continue bias. That's a really hard bill. It's third year running, but I think it is the civil rights fight of our generation. And so I continue to fight for that. And then I have a bill on AI for kids. Kids are now actually, the research is showing many are moving from social media to this engagement with what we call AI chatbots. So that's a AI persona that they engage with like a human being. And it's really dangerous, to be frank with you. And so as we enter the AI era, one of the things I believe is we need to do better than we did with social media, where we just let them innovate at all costs. You can do whatever you want with our kids. They can be your guinea pigs. And we've seen the negative outcome for that. So this bill would set up a scheme in California where we would look at any AI tool marketed to children, decide if it's a high risk use case. So, and I count in the high risk use case under the bill a therapist. So now kids, I just happened to a friend of mine the other day. She was in with her son, and her doctor offered an AI therapist for a child. That is wholly unacceptable in my mind. And so, a risky use case like that, we wouldn't allow kids to be used as subjects in that experiment. Or is it a case where we like it, but we know it has some risk? So it's a classroom use case where we think it's a really great tool, but we want to make sure kids' privacy is protected. So we're going to allow it, but this board would then put regulation around it. And then lastly, low risk models, your Netflix. I always use the example of your Netflix recommendation engine. If it recommends a bad movie, I actually don't really care. That's a low risk use case. You might waste an hour of your life, but so be it. And so in that case, there would be no regulation and it could just go in, but really start to ask the question of, is this safe for our kids? Should it be used on them? Or do we need to put protections around it? So that's some of what we're working on in the AI space. Want to highlight Michelle is here. I think you heard from her earlier. Michelle Henry, my district director. She's amazing. The team is amazing. Hopefully many of you have met Lauren Howe, who's our district staffer who works in the Tri-Valley, but they are around. They hold office hours. They're here to support you if you need help with any state agencies, answer your questions, take your feedback on bills that I'm about to vote on. Apparently, Michelle was telling me we were getting a lot of calls today on solar policy. So some of you are calling, which is good news. We like to hear what you have to say. And just wanted to make sure you know we're here to support, we're here to help, and we want to hear from you. But I want to turn it over for questions while we have time.
Thanks, Rebecca. Before we go any further, I just want to check if we have a hard stop at any point.
Oh, yes. My husband is at band practice on Mondays. I have to go pick up my son at his band practice at 8:15. So I got to get out of here at 8.
Perfect. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Lots of bands in my family. I'm not musical, but they all are.
Thank you, Assembly Member. If anybody has questions for Rebecca, please raise your hand virtually or feel free to drop in the chat. Jackie, I see your hand up.
Hello, Rebecca. Thank you so much.
Hi, Jackie. Good to see you.
And I just wanted to find out if who I should contact in your office if we want to invite you to the UDC fundraiser this year. I'm just starting planning this, and it's tentatively scheduled in August 23rd. And is Michelle the contact for that?
Michelle is my local campaign person. She can drop her. Michelle, do you mind dropping your campaign email in there?
And we would love to have you speak at our event if you're
I
able.
love it. Well, you know, I love the UDC. The UDC was my home when I was running for office in 2017. So I'm eternally grateful for that. It's an important thing.
Thank you. And if Michelle could pop her info in the chat,
I
that
think
would.
she's doing it. I see her typing.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thanks, Jackie.
Alice and Sharon.
Alice, do you want to come off mute?
Okay. As always, great to see you. We
Good to
love
see you
seeing you.
guys.
And,
And thank you for being our assembly lady.
Oh, you're
and
so sweet.
you make us so proud. You know, you were talking about back in 2017. But I'm going to ask you to put on your law professor's hat for a moment.
Okay.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite things to do, Sharon. We're good.
Right. Well, we know what's going on with ICE abducting people illegally. And I asked Dinah Becton last week at a meeting of another Democratic club if that happened in Contra Costa County, could the district attorney go after the ICE agents and the people who ordered the ICE agents to make illegal abductions? She said something about that's a federal affair and the federal people would have to charge them. And I said, what is Pam Bondi going to put handcuffs on herself? Is there state legislation in place, or should there be, so that if federal agents come in and break our state laws, they be held responsible?
So it's an interesting question. So I will say it is happening in Contra Costa. I was just with a friend who belongs to Diablo Country Club, and one of the gentlemen she knows very well who works there was taken with a child and deported. So it is happening in our backyard and nobody knows it, which is wild. So if it's a federal officer acting within the capacity, so if they are actually an ICE agent, as you say, then they have federal immunity. The state cannot actually, that's, federalism. We cannot do anything about those actions, which is why a lot of what you've seen happen historically is saying we won't cooperate and our own employees will not cooperate, but we cannot control the employees of the federal government. And interesting fact is, so we can't even require federal lawyers, the U.S. Attorney's Office, they don't have to take continuing legal education because we cannot require anything of federal officials as a state. And so it's that is a long-standing policy. However, I just learned that many of these abductions are happening by bounty hunters. These are not government employees, and that is a very different thing. And so actually, I think I would argue that if that is the case, there's actually a false imprisonment claim to be made in that situation, because again, it's not a government official. I don't understand how they have the authority to do this, but I do know that some of my colleagues are looking at legal changes around that. Like, what state law do we need if that is the case? Because that is something we absolutely do have control over. So a little bit of a nuance there.
I didn't know about the federal immunity, but
yeah.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Didn't go to law school.
I know. When I found out the U.S. attorney is one of my best friends was actually at the Social Security Administration, and I was like convincing her to go to a CLE class with me. She's like, I don't have to take CLE. That's when I found that out. I'm like, what do you mean? And yeah, none of them take continuing education. It's wild.
Member Van.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was wondering if you supported the Polluters Superfund Act.
So the Superfund Act, there's two of them, one in the Senate and one in the Assembly. I believe the one in the Senate was also held in judiciary, but don't quote me on that because I'm not in the Senate. But I can tell you that ours, which is authored by Assemblymember John Addis, is sitting in the Judiciary Committee. I think that is a very complicated question right now. And it's something actually I've said for a long time. So I am a believer, and this isn't going to be a wild thing to tell all of you, that climate change is a global issue. California is 1% of global emissions. We have a role to play. We are driving as hard as we can. I'm in charge of cap and trade reauthorization because it is actually the most powerful reduction in greenhouse gas that we have in our toolbox. It needs to be reauthorized. But, you know, I think there's a real question about what is happening in California right now, which is we just had another refinery announced closure in Contra Costa County, and there is no reduction in the amount of demand on oil in California as a result of that. The same number of people want to drive cars, the same amount of gas is going to be sold, and we have one less refinery in our state. And the refineries in our state, to be clear, are cleaner. Our regulations are the strongest in the world. So we refine cleaner than anybody in the world, and it's not being imported on ships that emit. And so one of the things that I have struggled with, and I've said this since I ran for office 6 years ago, is that we have to drive down demand more than supply, because supply here is better than us shipping in from Saudi Arabia. So this refinery is now closing. This is unrelated to Superfund bill, so I'll get there. And we're now going to have to ship in that oil because demand has not changed. And that is absolutely, in my mind, a loss for climate policy, because we do it better, we do it cleaner, we do it with less human rights violations, all the things. And now we're going to bring it in on tankers that emit while potentially spilling that oil, God knows where. So I think it is really important that we're honest about the fact that we need to get to 100% clean cars, and we need to get rid of the demand for oil in California, period. We've seen that as we've succeeded in doing that, our oil companies have actually started producing more plastic because they want their bottom line to stay the same. And we actually have done a pretty great job. 25% of new cars in California are now electric. So we are driving demand down. It's not happening as fast as I think anybody on this call wants, but we're doing it. And they're actually driving up demand for plastic to keep their profits the same. So we need to drive down demand for all products that they are producing, oil producing products from plastics to cars, and get rid of the need. But in the meantime, I actually don't think it's a win for us to shut down here. And I said that, and it has been a controversial thing for me to say as an environmentalist, but I actually believe it. And so, you know, we had this refinery announced closure, the Superfund bill came in, and I asked the proponents, help me understand how this is going to work. Like, how is this not going to lead to California producers paying more than the dirty producers? Like, that's a concern for me. So help me understand that. Like, I actually think there's a real problem here you're trying to solve. I think we have costs related to climate that the taxpayers are bearing right now that polluters should pay. I completely agree with the premise. But the problem is, because we can only attach liability to California-based producers, the most responsible production in the world is going to be what is paying. And then all those people bringing in from offshore are going to get a break. And what happens? Do we then produce nothing in California and only ship in Saudi oil? Like, that is a loss to climate policy and to California and to all of it. So they couldn't answer that question for me, to be frank with you. And I need an answer to that. I need to know that we have a way to ensure that we are continuing to, as we need to supply oil, which is a reality. I know none of us want it to be the reality, but it absolutely is, that we have a way to do that that is responsible while also getting these costs borne. And until I can get that answer, I don't feel comfortable. And that was one of many questions I asked that I was, to be frank, didn't get great answers to. So I know that this community really wants that bill, and I know New York did it, but I need to feel confident. New York is also not California. I mean, we are a much bigger state. We produce oil for ourselves in meaningful ways in other neighboring states, and again, cleanest in the world. So I am struggling with that, but I have a meeting next week with the environmental voters to discuss, and I've told them, come to me, explain to me how this is going to work and how this isn't going to lead to dirtier climate policies in other parts of the world. Because to me, that is a loss for California and for the world.
One more thing. Where do you stand on the solar contracts? No, that was a great answer. I love it.
Sorry, Van. Oh yeah, so that's the one, Michelle. I don't know if it was you, Van, that called. We got 100 calls on that today. The most calls of the year are on that, in opposition. I had a meeting on that today with, and I don't see our friends from IBW on this call. They're in support of that, just so we're clear. That's who I met with today. I told them that I have a district that has really I have a climate friendly district. I love, our investment in our climate future. And that investment has come with real investment. And I'm one of those people, by the way. When I was looking at buying solar, my husband's like, I don't know if it's going to pencil out. And I said, we happen to live in the only city left in the Bay Area that does not have a community choice aggregator. So I cannot buy clean energy through the grid. I'm trying really hard, voting for people who will hopefully make that happen in Orinda, but stuck with a city council that won't do it. And so I did make that investment. And so did many of you. And I think that that's real and we need to honor it. And we need to promote solar investment in California, because especially with the move to electrification, I believe we need an all of the above approach. Like, we're going to need all the sources of energy, guys, because we need, we're going to need storage, we're going to need solar, we're going to need wind, we're going to need offshore wind. Like, we've got to be investing in clean energy in all of its forms. And we know in this group more than anyone how hard it is to build large solar farms and large wind production. There have been many fights about it in the Tri-Valley that are real. And so rooftops are key to getting to the energy future we need. And so, yeah, I'm clear about that.
What about VPPs? Do you support the legislation that would allow for virtual power plants, neighborhood power plants?
Oh, yeah, no, that's wild. And I think, what's funny about that is the PUC always opposes that bill. I actually did a behind the meter bill many years ago, my first year, I think, or my second year. So it's been many, many years since I did that bill that would have required the PUC to actually price our behind the meter. So if someone has storage and they release it to the grid, that it would be competitively purchased. Like, I should be motivated to put my electricity on the grid because that benefits the community. And I couldn't get that through the legislature, which is wild, because at the way your volumetric prices work is the more demand there is, the higher the price, right? It's a bidding war, and we're bidding with other states around us. And so if it's a really hot day in the entire West, prices go like this. And so if you can say, well, you know what, I'm going to pay you this if you release to the grid, but it's still a competitive price, people would do that. And all of our rates would be cheaper. We can't even get the PUC to do that. You got me started.
Sorry, jumped on you.
A lot of feelings about the PUC. Okay, but I did see some questions in the chat. Homeowners insurance is a good question. And as you all heard, I'm in this with you. We are waiting on the regs. We gave emergency authority. The governor gave emergency authority to the insurance commissioner to move the regs, not through the regular order, which would have taken years, but through much faster process. Those regs have happened. Interestingly, there are parts of the state that are really, I think, going to benefit from those. And it's really the high fire zones where we are. When I went on the FAIR plan, my insurance went up 300%. So that's the increase if you get kicked off your insurance. Or if you're in risk, and State Farm is going up 25%. And what those will say is that you can actually price for risk. Now, in order to do that, they have to agree to take people off of the FAIR plan. So they have to depopulate the FAIR plan at the same time. That's actually something we learned from Florida. Florida allowed them to do this with no agreement they would take anybody risky. And so they raised the rates for low risk people and didn't take the high risk people. This is a very different dynamic. They will have to depopulate the FAIR plan, which means I will pay more because I live in a high risk zone, but I at least will be able to get insurance. It will be significantly cheaper than what I'm paying on the FAIR plan. The estimates are it will go up maybe 30 to 50% from where I was instead of 300%. But one of the complicated parts is they have these very opaque models where they do that risk modeling, and we need to trust it, right? Are they just raising your rates because they want to raise rates, or is there a real risk profile that results in them needing to raise your rate and the market needs to function? And so one of the things the state is doing is it is creating a public model that we can run against that. So we will have a model that will say what your rate should be. And then it wouldn't have to be exactly, right? We don't expect the models to be identical, but there should be within a margin of error, right? From the rates they're producing out of their models to know that they're actually using responsive modeling to do these rates. And it's going to be a little bit more of a black box than what we see today. That's great. That's going to take time. But in the meantime, we are letting them do risk modeling, and it will hopefully open the market. And I just heard that some of the admitted carriers are starting to depopulate the FAIR plan based on this. So I'm hopeful. It's not happening fast enough. I know firsthand that that's the case, but it is really important that we do that, and we're watching it like a hawk. And one of the things we're doing there is also making sure that those models account for mitigation measures you're taking. So if you do zone 0 and you make your house safe, that model should account for that, because that's really important. We want you to do that work. It does make our community safer, and it should be calculated in to the risk associated with your homeowner insurance. And then there was one other question that I saw. Oh, the 10-year moratorium on AI regulation. Yes, it's really bad, guys. And so I'm about to come out with a bipartisan letter, actually, with some of my Republican colleagues opposing the 10-year moratorium. The interesting thing about the 10-year moratorium is it is written, so for those that don't know, Congress stuck into the budget something that said that the states could not enforce any artificial intelligence policy for 10 years. What is interesting about that is if we start to look at what that applies to, it is actually Republican bills and Democratic bills. Like, these are not progressive bills necessarily. Some of them are, but my bias tool bill would be a more progressive one, but some of the bills are our child sexual assault material bills, right? I mean, CSAM is now produced using artificial intelligence, and we did a bill protecting people from that. Deep fake nudes of kids. I mean, at Beverly Hills last year, they made nude pictures of these underage kids. That should be a crime. We went after that. That wouldn't be able to be enforced. So these are not, these are things that our Republicans have eagerly supported and in some cases authored. And so they are coming on in support of opposing that moratorium. I'm told that it will likely be taken out in the Senate, but that it will likely pass the House. It passed subcommittee last night, so it is moving. But it would be really dangerous, because a lot of what we think about today that you want to be protected from is happening via AI. So it's very scary that we would be in a place where we couldn't enforce any laws related to artificial intelligence. Okay, Christy.
Hi. This may be naive, but I've been surprised at how quickly what's happening at the federal level has come down to the local level. And every issue I work on, every committee I'm in, everything's just been turned upside down. And one of the big things is losing all the federal grants. And especially for our social service agencies, this has been a huge hit. And I just came from a city council budget meeting where we're allocating monies, any surplus money we can pull to fill those gaps, but it's such a drop in the bucket. And I know the state also can't make up for what we're losing at the federal level, but do you have any suggestions or advice, or what can we do to help support the most vulnerable people in our community?
We are in a very similar place. 2 weeks ago, we lost $1 billion in public health funds. I mean, it just happens. It's down across the states, but we're the biggest state, so we lose the most of anybody, and it's hundreds of public health workers. I mean, it's just, the things that are happening, you're like, these weren't things we used to fight over, right? Like public health, that was not a partisan issue, just 10 years ago. And so it's really hard, and we will not be able to make all of it up either. There's no question about that. We don't mint money. We have to do a balanced budget. And I guess from our perspective, we are trying to just center the most vulnerable and the people who need us the most in our budgeting decisions, and cut back on the things that are unnecessary. I will say that in the May revise, there was over $100 million for tech companies. I will say that should not go into the June budget. That is not our most vulnerable. But I do think that, as we look at, there's no way we're going to make up every Medicaid cut. So who needs us the most, and how do we do it? And is there a way to, I thought that the governor's proposal to put very small premiums on folks, which then will allow us to cover more people. Like, how do we get creative about how we fill these gaps? Because you're right. We can't take care of everybody in this moment. But I will say that, one of my takeaways about what's going on in Washington right now is that the reason Elon Musk is able to dismantle government, and the polling says that they feel like it's effective, is because we have done a horrible job of having people understand what the government does. We do not market ourselves well. And so, nobody knew, for example, the USAID was buying all the corn in the Midwest, that's where the food was going, right? So that was our subsidy to the farmers of America. And now it's just sitting there. So that's how they found out that that's what we were doing, is a failure on the part of government. And so part of what I actually think is so important right now is that people like you and me help folks understand the silent things that they appreciate, that they experience every day, that is thanks to government. Like, this is what your tax dollars get you, right? Like, this is why government matters. This is why we shouldn't dismantle government. And I think sadly they're going to learn it by seeing what goes away. But I do think we need to do a better job of also helping people understand all the good we do in their lives every day, because it's real. And I didn't know half of it before I became an assembly member. So, you know, and I imagine the same is true for you on the city council and the school board. Maybe the school board is more transparent, but all the silent things that the city council does, people they're not aware of it. They don't notice it when that stop sign saves their life, and the road, they don't get, you know, their tires aren't messed up because there were no potholes. Like, these are the things we do every day for them that silently go unnoticed. And it's really important we get them to see it. So I don't know if that helps, but it's a little piece. And then I did see a question from Trish, which I want to answer because there was a fascinating article in the New York Times today or yesterday that I was like, I'm doing something about that. And it was on AI and energy. So she made the point that AI is really problematic from an energy and water perspective, and she's not wrong. The water chair, Diane Pappin, is dealing on the water side, but I've taken on the energy issue. I have a bill, AB 222, which focuses on both transparency and efficiency of data centers. So it would require that they both disclose the amount of energy they're using, and that we put efficiency standards on it to make them as environmental as possible. And then the third thing it does, which is this is what the New York Times article was talking about, was how you and I, the ratepayers, are going to be paying for the infrastructure for these private AI companies. So the bill requires that they pay for all of the infrastructure required to beef up the grid for these data centers. Once we have we'll be able to do that. And so that is because the more demand you have on the grid, as I mentioned, the price goes up. And so we've got to make sure that they are bearing the cost to build up the transmission so that your prices don't go up. It's great, we should have them, but we should make sure they are paying. We are not subsidizing these private AI companies. That's not going to happen under my watch. So both sort of ratepayer protection piece, but also an environmental piece.
Thanks, Assembly Member. We have more questions, but feel free to cut us off if you need to go.
Yeah, so I have 2 minutes before I have to go.
Okay, we'll make it quick.
Oh yeah, so Trish, I'll send you the article. It was so funny, one of my staff saw it and he's like, we're on this. It was all about the ratepayer piece, which, having spent 4 years on utilities and energy, I was wildly aware of what this was going to do to your and my rates, which are already too high. So I do need to run, but I just want to thank you guys for having me, and I want to thank you for everything you're doing. And I'm sorry I didn't get to all your questions. We are here to answer them. It's definitely, you know, more wild than I ever could have imagined right now. And we are doing our best at the state level to stay attuned to what is going on, to be responsive, to make sure we're budgeting in a way that supports the most people with the most good, although we won't be able to do it all. If these Medicaid cuts go through, I mean, it's just going to be devastating for folks. So we are hopeful that, you know, I know that our Republican colleagues in the Central Valley who have much higher, you know, numbers of people on Medicare and Medicaid are focused on this and realize the outcome if they take these things away. But it seems to be sort of along party lines right now. So I'm hopeful that they'll step up and they'll protect their constituents. But you know, I think we have a real job ahead of us as we head into the next election, because it is really critical that we get out and do the work we need to do to save our democracy. And I know that if anyone is there, it will be all of you. So I want to thank you in advance for that.
Thank you, Assembly Member. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to answer our questions, and we'll let you go.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And again, folks, if you do have any more questions for the Assembly Member, Michelle's contact info is in the chat. Feel free to email her, drop her a message, and I'm sure she'll help us with that. So thank you guys. Thank you all for that. Now we want to transition to some upcoming events and club business stuff. Let's talk a little bit about the convention that I'm sure folks know is happening in Anaheim in about 2 weeks. I know a number of folks on this call right now are planning to attend. We do have our lovely regional director here, Victor Costa. He is an expert on all the stuff that's going on at convention and state party and stuff like that. I don't know, Victor, if I know he's juggling another meeting if you're here, but please make a peep if you are.
Hey, Richard. Yeah, sorry, I just stepped out of the room.
No worries, you're good. We're just talking about convention. I don't know if you have any updates or anything you want to share about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to cover a little bit. So for any of those folks who are coming to convention, like Richard said, it's going to be coming up in 2 weekends from now, May 30th to June 1st in Anaheim. So there's gonna be all kinds of stuff happening. So, obviously the major thing that's happening is we are gonna be voting for the new executive board for the California Democratic Party to serve for the next 4 years. For chair, our 2 vice chair positions, the self-identified females and other than self-identified female vice chairs, secretary and controller. As of right now, there is 3 contested races. So for chair, we have 3 candidates. For the other than self-identified female vice chair, there's 2 candidates. And then for the secretary position, there are 2 candidates. The female self-identified female vice chair position, they actually extended the deadline to file because the incumbent Betty Yee is not running again. So I think that deadline is actually coming up Wednesday of this week. So we may potentially have a contested race there. Besides that, there will be votes in regards to regional directors. So we have 22 regional directors across the state. I think as of right now, there are only 5 contested regional director seats. I filed to run again. And unfortunately, I was unopposed, so I will be your regional director for another 2 years. And I believe Jeff Corson also unopposed, so he'll be regional director for Region 3 for another 2 years. Besides that, we'll also be voting on resolutions and rule changes for the state party. And then something that I think is probably a bit important, it'd be great to have some folks show up, is they are going to be having ADEM testimony hearing at convention. So every time we have the assembly delegate election meetings, the party usually has a testimony hearing to kind of hear what voters and delegates thought about the process, what could be improved, what were issues that probably need to be resolved, or how do we fix the process? So if any of you are going to be there, I highly recommend that you attend and provide your input. It is very important for us to express how we felt about these ADEM elections and what could be improved upon, or if there were things that were done great, and if there were things that weren't done great, the party needs to know and hear from us. I'm going to post a couple of things in the chat for y'all. So if you don't already have it, I'm posting the CADEM website. So it's cdpconvention.org. That's where you're going to find all of the information in regards to the convention. They're going to have the schedule and the agenda for the weekend, as well as any kind of information you may need. It has a list of the code of conduct, the convention rules, prohibited items. So again, make sure that you are checking that list so you're not accidentally bringing in items that are not allowed in the convention center. For example, you cannot bring glass or metal water containers, right? You can't bring like a metal water bottle. So be mindful of that. They will not let you sneak that in. They are going to have security. Ever since the Sacramento convention, they've been a bit more strict on the security protocols at the convention. So they do take it seriously. No drones, no cameras unless you're media, things like that. And then the other link is the unofficial convention schedule by Alfred Twu, who's actually a delegate in the East Bay. I highly recommend for those attending, please use his schedule. Because it's very in depth. It covers all the official events that are happening that are hosted by the California Democratic Party, and then he also does a really good job of actually scouring any other unofficial events or any events that are being done by elected officials, organizations, and things like that that are happening during the convention weekend, but may not necessarily be on the convention schedule on the website. So definitely recommend saving that Google sheet and having that on hand whenever you can. He will be updating it a lot over the weekend, so things may change, like locations and times and things like that. So make sure you're always checking on that so you're not accidentally missing events or showing up to the wrong place or what have you. And then the last link, so like I said, we are having leadership elections, right? So myself, regional directors Alejandro Carrillo and Dominic Dursa will be hosting a Central California candidate forum for those 5 seats. It's going to be happening Wednesday, May 28th at 6 p.m. on Zoom. The purpose of this is to ask these candidates about the issues that affect Central California when we're talking about the Central Coast, the Tri-Valley, the Central Valley, as well as the Sierra Foothills, and kind of hearing their perspectives about our areas, and also asking what they are actually going to do to help support us when we're talking about electing folks up and down the ballot, to helping provide resources to our Democratic parties and clubs and other things like that, to make sure that we're able to do the work that we're doing, but also what are they doing to help support those efforts, and also helping support Democratic electeds too. So if you can, feel free to come out. We'd appreciate folks to come on, get to hear these candidates, ask them questions, things like that. Besides that, oh yeah, and just to let you know, they have been slowly leaking who's gonna be part of the guest speaker list at convention. So as of right now, one of the main speakers is going to be Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. And then they are also having one of the Democratic National Committee vice chairs come speak at the convention. So for those of you who have never attended a convention before, we have 3 general sessions that happen during the weekend. You have 2 on Saturday and 1 Sunday morning. So normally the 2 Saturday general sessions, that's when we have all the major speakers come out. That's when we hear from folks in the party. That's when we hear about candidates who are running for office. That's when we hear about folks who are brought in by CADEM to come speak to the body. That's also the time where like a lot of candidates will pass out signs and swag out to delegates. And then the Sunday session is when we actually do the official business, right? A lot of people think that session doesn't matter, but that's actually the most important. That's where we as delegates actually get to vote and decide and approve resolutions and legislation and all kinds of stuff that actually happened throughout the weekend. So if you are able to attend, please make sure you attend all general sessions. Because again, the Sunday one is very important. But like I said, the 2 on Saturday are going to be mostly speeches. So if you want to come see some high profile electeds or individuals come speak, that's the time to go. For the rest of the convention, everything is open to the public, right? So if you're not a delegate or you weren't able to get an observer pass, you can attend the rest. So we're talking about the standing committees, the caucus meetings, the charter organization meetings, that kind of stuff. You can attend. You do not have to be a delegate. You do not have to be credentialed to attend those events. It's only the general sessions where you have to have your credentials on you. And then there are some VIP events as well that they'll ask you to have your credentials, but for the most part, you don't need that on you. I think that's generally it in regards to convention and upcoming events with the party. Do folks have any questions?
Nope, I don't see any hands. Richard, where are we?
I don't see any hands either. For folks, for context, Victor is our regional director for Region 6 in California. So that covers Assembly District 16. If you're in 8016, you're in his district. If you're not in 8016, you may be in somebody else's region. Going once, going twice for hands. Anybody? Okay.
I see a question in regards to proxies. Cool. So in regards to proxies, there's 2 things that you should be doing right now if you can. One, if you're gonna send a proxy, make sure that you have paid your convention dues and your convention fees and your annual dues, right? So in order for a proxy to be legitimized, those 2 things have to be paid for. And it has to be paid for by the delegate. So if you are a delegate and you are sending a proxy, make sure you get those paid. If not, I believe the proxy will have to figure out how to get that paid in person during the registration portion. The other thing that they're going to need is they're going to need a proxy form. So I sent out an email to all of our delegates in Region 6 in regards to the online proxy form, and a hard copy of the proxy form. So that proxy form needs to have a wet signature from the delegate. So you can't use an electronic signature. It has to be physically written on the proxy form, has to be filled out, and that proxy needs to bring it with them to the registration table at the convention hall. Once you do that, if you have all those paid off and you bring the proxy form, then that proxy will be able to be registered to the event, and then they can then get their credentials during the registration portions of convention. I believe for Friday, the first registration window is 3:30 to 8:30 p.m. So anytime between those hours, you can go and get registered, your proxy, get their credentials. And then there's another registration on Saturday. I think it's from 12 to 8 by the double check. And then there's one last registration / credential period on Sunday morning from 8 to 10 a.m. So in order for you to come to the general sessions, in order for you to vote in the CADEM executive officer elections or at the Sunday general session, you have to be credentialed at the convention. And then I see a question in regards to how do we pay the registration fees. So previously, you could log into the delegate portal to get that paid off. Unfortunately, they actually closed it. So now the only opportunity for you to pay for that is to do it in person. So again, the proxy, when they go to the registration hall, there'll be a section that'll go over payments and registration for them. So they'll have to go online and get that paid and get their registration finalized. And then the rest of the hall, there'll be different tables based on folks' last names. So it'll be like from A to C, D to F, G to I, right? And you'll go to that table to get your credentials. The proxy will have to do so by their delegate's last name. So what happens is with proxies, they will take the delegate's actual like credential pass or placeholder badge, and then the CADEM staff there will put a proxy sticker on it, and then they'll rewrite your name on it if you're a proxy.
Thanks, Victor. Any other questions?
And then one last thing, just to let folks know. So CADEM is doing an organizing boot camp called Camp CADEM on Friday from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. They did close registration for that, but I've been told by CADEM staff that if there's any call outs, they will potentially allow people who didn't register in advance to actually participate. So if any of you are interested in attending Camp CADEM and you're going to be there Friday morning and you're able to be there for the whole 5 hours, please let me know, and I can check in on Friday morning to see if there's any openings, and I can kind of slide you into the boot camp if you'd be interested in attending. So if you want, feel free to call or text me about it. I'm going to put my phone number in the chat, or you can also email me as well, whichever is, I guess, easier for you.
Thanks, Victor. Cool. That is convention. And if you have any questions after this around convention, feel free to message or call or whatever Victor. He put his contact info in the chat. Okay, cool. We only really have, I believe, one last like major item of business before we go into club business stuff. But it is around the Tri-Valley UDC summer picnic. As a reminder for folks who may be newer to the club, the Tri-Valley UDC summer picnic is something we started doing, I believe, 2 years ago. And we did it last year. It is a way for, well, actually, you know what? We have our UDC chair, Jackie, here. So I'm just going to turn it over to Jackie if you want to talk a little bit about what the UDC is, what the summer picnic is, and why we have it.
Sure. So, along with being the president of this club, I'm the current chair, and Richard is the vice chair of the local United Democratic Campaign. And what the UDCs are is during presidential election years, we open up campaign offices, physical campaign office, where you can go and pick up yard signs, register to vote. We have access to look up and see people's registration status, poll lists for candidates that have been endorsed by the Central Committee. So we work real hard for those candidates on the presidential years. But every year we need to do a fundraiser to keep money in the coffers. We have a professional treasurer that files all the proper FCC and local and paperwork for the county, and this costs money. It costs about $525 per quarter just to pay for that professional treasury. So we need to every year do a little fundraising. And we have in the past 2 years, like Richard said, have hosted a barbecue fundraiser, and we try to get as many of our elected officials there to speak and mingle and share their stories and give us updates. I've already reached out to Congressman Swalwell's office, or his campaign, I should say, to see if he's available. I have a tentative date. I'm hoping I get feedback from Congressman Swalwell, but I also wanted to get feedback from you all, because without attendees, there's nothing that we can really do, right? So we do need attendees. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading what's in the, I don't think that's for me, right? That's for Rebecca. So tentatively, I reserved the Pleasanton Rec Center on August 23rd. Congress is usually out of session in the month of August. So I kind of gambled and grabbed a date, but I'd like to get your feedback. If there's other things going on in the community that this would be in conflict with, to let me know. And I'm waiting for Congressman Swalwell's office to give me a call back by end of week to see if this date works. And I'll reach out to Rebecca Bauer-Kahan's office as well and, look for that information. A couple of things I wanted to get also feedback from the club is, do we want to also do just a Tri-Valley picnic that's free for our members? Or do we want to offer something at the UDC picnic for club members? I don't know if this is legal. I'd have to pass it by our treasurer, but my thought was maybe offering a discount to anybody that's a member of a Democratic club, whether it's the Tri-Valley Democratic Club or the Castor Valley Democratic Club or the Young Dems, or any club. If you're a member, we can give you a discount. It was just a thought to try to get all of our members. So I wanted to open up the floor for discussion about that. Your thoughts? Do we do 2 events? Do we just do the fundraiser? I do need to do a fundraiser this year. And then what's your thoughts on offering discounts to club members? Anyone?
Yeah, I have a thought about discounts for club members. Most of us probably wouldn't bother to take advantage of that, because the reason that we go to these barbecues twofold. One is to support the UDC and our candidates and our political objectives, and the other one is a purely social one. So instead of doing that, I would present an alternate that if somebody has a financial difficulty in paying the regular price to go to the picnic, the chair, you, Jackie, has the ability to either waive the admission price or discount it
That makes
at your
sense.
discretion. Rather than saying club membership buys you something extra.
Okay, that makes sense. Trish, your thoughts?
Trying to unmute. I would agree that time is much more important for people than whatever the funds are, and that raising funds. This is as much about building community as it is about raising money. With that in mind, and thinking about what the assembly member said, what could we set this up as? I don't know the correct, I'm going to say it as a raffle, but it's really more like a bingo kind of thing. And I don't know what the legality is or how to play this. So, but I'm imagining that we do a round of Jeopardy that says, do you know? And then people can play, do you know who does this in what city? Or again, this is, it is a way to play, help educate people, involve them in learning, and do it in a fun way with a game that people know. And it doesn't have to be at the same time as the picnic. That night might not be the best venue for it, but it does seem to me to be something that would engage people and that we could use as a fundraiser.
Okay. Is that something that, I guess it doesn't matter what location we have it at, right? If we did something like that, we could just.
Well,
incorporate it into-
sorry. It's probably not the kind of thing that would be done at a picnic,
Right.
because outdoors and wind and whatever, but yeah. I mean, an indoor location, separate, food, drink, people come and, second kind of fundraiser that is not from our electeds.
So make sure I hear you right. So you're suggesting we do 2 events, one just the picnic for the club, and then a separate fundraiser that's more engaging in education and.
Yeah,
fun?
yeah. That was what came to mind, in terms of putting together how to have fun, other kinds of things I've done with other organizations for raising money, that when people get involved with this, it happens. This could be an offline thing. I've probably said enough. I'm happy to work on it with whoever. I probably talked enough at this point.
That's okay. That's okay. Maybe we could talk more about it at the convention.
We could.
Jackie, if I can inject something, that a fundraiser has its upfront objective, raising funds for the EDC. Typically, the club picnics upfront objectives was recruitment. And the idea was, if you have some friend or neighbor who's thinking about getting into politics or joining a Democratic club, you can give them a sweet taste of what it's like. And we would have elected officials there, and that would be the attraction of them coming, but also the social part of it. And we would improve our membership. That is, we would recruit new members through the picnic. But when you put a fundraiser on top of it, and if I remember correctly, last year it started out at about $50 a person. I'm not sure about my recollection, but that isn't the way to recruit people, by charging them $50 to go to a picnic. That's the way you raise funds from your known membership, who've already taken the commitment to be active Democrats.
So you're saying, so
Attract more
Ellis, you're
people.
saying we should do the picnic just for the club at a low price, just the cost, and do a separate fundraiser.
That could be right, and we should go to have electeds be speakers at both of these events.
And we can invite more people to the picnic if it's a lower cost.
Yeah, at 10 or $15 a piece to go to the picnic, that is an exorbitant, and it's likely we'd be able to attract people. Now, we have people in front of the Tesla dealerships every Saturday. We used to invite people at the Pleasanton Farmers Market and whatever other farmers market we happen to have a table at. And that was a good way to recruit people, because you can invite them up front and personal, firsthand, face to face.
Yeah, because you're doing rallies and protests. Those people might be interested.
For the 23rd, would that be a good date for just a Tri-Valley Democratic Club picnic?
So far.
So far? Okay. I'm waiting to hear from Congressman Swalwell, and I'll reach out to.
And, yeah, and
person.
get Mark also, and as many officials that you can, the mayors of the different cities and stuff.
Yeah, well, Jackie, this isn't Jackie's first rodeo.
Speaking of the rodeo, okay, is there, now Sharon is the lead for events. Is there anybody else that would like to help participate in planning a Tri-Valley Democratic Club picnic? And then I'll work with Trish on some ideas for something unique UDC wise.
I'll work with Sharon as if I have a choice.
Ron?
Okay. And Ron is also volunteering to work on a TVDC picnic. That would be good
Oh,
fun
good.
as
So we'll probably
usual.
have a meeting.
Yeah, and I'll bring the wife too. She can help set up. And I'll also volunteer myself as a musician and some other members of my band if we want. And I'll volunteer them also as entertainment director for UDC. So,
And just as long as because we will be indoor, outdoor, and I believe this facility requires the music to be indoor. So we do have to be aware of the volume. It can't be too loud. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to talk.
Acoustic instruments only would be a
Acoustic
control.
and maybe if you
No
only,
mics.
yeah. So we
And
want
maybe nobody for UDC. Maybe nobody at all, but I'm volunteering.
Thank you, Ron.
Okay. And I think that the two separate are a good idea. And one of the things we mentioned is one of our goals at the beginning of the year for the Tri-Valley was to increase membership. So this has been effective in the past, and I think it's a good idea. And if we can pass out our cards and write on it for the date of the picnic, and August 23rd sounds good for me, at these events, like at the Tesla and the ones in Walnut Creek. So those demonstrations are good places to recruit people who have some active political interest and are willing to commit some time, but don't have a way of focusing. And so this would allow us to focus their energies and increase our membership.
Thank you. Okay, we got you down. Anybody else? Any other comments about?
Jackie, I can help you too. I can,
Is that
Jackie,
it's
are
Valerie.
the kids
Thank you,
back
Valerie.
at?
Hold
Are
on,
the
Sharon, Val was talking. Hold on. Thank
No,
you.
I just said I can help you with some of the picnic stuff,
Oh,
so.
that's sweet.
Thank
put
you.
it down.
Right.
Yeah, I may use your address so we can get the discounted rate.
Okay, yeah, we could do that.
I haven't booked yet. I just have them holding it right now.
Okay, got it.
Beautiful.
That's all
Jackie,
Yes.
sorry.
Yes, Sharon.
Are the kids back in school then? Or are people still on vacation?
I don't know.
Pleasanton, they'll be back in school, I believe. They go back usually the second week of August now,
But it's on the weekend.
but it's weekend, so.
I
it's
think
okay.
it's right on the cusp of Livermore going back.
Yeah,
Them in Walnut Creek.
they're booking up quick, so that's why I snagged one and had them hold it for me for now, and send a note off to the congressman. So,
Good idea.
There's a big demonstration, June 14th is the date, I think.
correct.
And we ought to target that as a date that we could hand out invitations to both of these events, because that's going to be much larger than what we see at the Tesla dealership.
Okay. It sounds good. Sounds like a
So
plan.
we ought to get some invitation printed up, and we'll go down there and hand them out face to face. And that's the best way to recruit people, face to face. And they're already committed, because they wouldn't be at these demonstrations if they weren't already somewhat political.
And Christy noted that the first day of school is August 13th in Livermore. Wow.
Okay, good.
Starting early. Boy, poor kids.
Now, well, we don't get a lot of kids at our barbecues.
No, but the
Yeah.
parents, if
Yeah.
they're still on vacation, yeah. you have to worry about that.
We always go through this. I was kind of looking at any conflict, like there's a huge, party already in Contra Costa County for, whatever. I'm not aware of all of the events. So, speaking of events, I do want to share a couple with you.
Sorry,
There.
Jackie, can I just say one thing?
Oh yeah, go ahead, Richard, while I'm pulling this.
I'll make it quick. Just on the idea of having two events, a fundraiser and a sort of club membership recruitment type event, I would actually put out there for consideration for the club membership recruitment event that we just not charge people, make it free, even 10 or 15 bucks. Like that is for somebody who maybe doesn't know about the club or like is new to the club, that I feel like is to even have to pay for anything feels like a barrier. And it's not worth getting the what would it be, like a few hundred, a couple hundred at most dollars like intake. The whole point of club membership recruitment is to get people, invite people in and get folks to the event, get folks, engage with the club and meet people and things like that. It just feels a little counterproductive to charge people for that.
We've had free of charge barbecues before, and it was basically potluck, and the club paid for stuff like the meat. So hot dogs, hamburgers.
And people brought either
and-
salads or desserts.
Right.
We've done that too. And that reduced the
And
cost of
that
the
really
club.
worked out. And we can invite people who aren't members of the club and not expect them to bring anything to the potluck. They're our guests.
I like
But we
that
can have a
idea.
meeting.
Yeah, let's go ahead and let's table this discussion. I will set up a call maybe this Friday before the convention next week, because I'd like to really get at least a reservation settled. We can
Well,
have a
but
quick
reserve it anyway, and we'll work around it. Because it's, more people
and we
will
could
be
meet
planning their
after
things.
the convention, the first week of June to plan it.
Yeah. If you go for Friday, go for the afternoon for meeting, please.
Yeah.
Okay. Question, do we need 2 reservations for 2 events?
We haven't decided what we'll do with the UDC, so Trish and I will discuss that, and Richard, and figure out what kind of event we're gonna host, and then we'll have to find the venue. Maybe it's just at my home.
Okay.
In the backyard again at night, because it'll be hot. It's getting hot. It's getting hot already. Okay, and how are you gonna find out? We do post, if you can join, if you go to our website, you can join our mail list so that you get notified about everything. Let me get you the invitation for that. And, oh, there you go. Okay, so if you go to our website, and it is under, let me see exactly where it is.
What did she say? Pleasanton what? Do you remember?
Community Center. Let's see. So if you go under our website, and it should pop up to join our mailing list. And if you don't get that pop up at the bottom, there's also a place you can submit the request. So once you subscribe to our newsletter, you will get all of our notifications. We do also put stuff on our calendar. So I will make sure that this goes on Mobilize, it goes on our calendar, it goes out to our communications to our members. And if ever you can't find what you need, drop us an email at, what is it, media@tvdims. You can always drop us an email. Let me get that email, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have. And that is tvdimsmedia@gmail.com. Gmail.com. Is there any other questions about the UDC fundraiser or a picnic? The other things that are coming up, I want to thank our club member who sent this to me. Let me cut and paste this real quick. Thank you, Mark. Sent this to me. Senator Welch and Senator Tammy Baldwin will lead their Democratic colleagues in holding a 2-day forum to examine the human harm caused by the shuttering of key departments and mass firings of health experts at the HHS. And there's 2 dates for these live streams. I'm going to save these here.
And that is tomorrow at noon to 1:30 and the following day, noon to 1:30. So it's 2 days in a row.
So is that a duplication of the
I
same?
don't think so. I don't think so. It could be, but I don't think so.
Hey, let me, oh, I posted too much and I posted.
And we're, that's the over $4 trillion is under their purview. So if you want to influence health and Medicare and Medicaid and all those, little things, that's a good one to listen into.
And there is the detail for that. And
I had posted it in the chat a little earlier too.
oh, wonderful. Thank you, Mark. Thank
With-
you for thinking of us. And again, the Tesla takedown every weekend, 12 in Dublin. I will not be there the next 2 weeks just because the convention and other stuff coming up. But when I get back, I'll reach out to Kyoko. Maybe we can sponsor one day over in Dublin. And then June 14th is the No Kings, and we'll send out all of the information for that. And I believe I already have it on the Alameda County Democratic Central Committee's calendar, which is also on our website as well. So, check back with our websites, check Mobilize, lots of events out there happening. And that is my report, Richard, if you want to.
Thanks, Jackie.
Other-
I don't really have a report, but we are going into officer reports. I know it's 8:38 right now. Let's try and keep it short if possible. But Ellis, I'll turn it over to you for a political director's report.
Well, first off, the secretary's report. We actually had 2 meetings last month. One meeting, we had California Clean Money Campaign come in here and talk about, believe the SB 42, which would expand localities' capability for having publicly funded elections. And we voted to support that and also donate $200 to the campaign. And I'm not sure if Alan actually was successful at doing that. He was having some, let me call them technical difficulties. As far as the political director's report, we may have our head in the sand, but that constitution that we were looking at the beginning of the meeting is in dire jeopardy because Trump has really said, I don't know if I have to follow the Supreme Court rulings. And this is really, push comes to shove, it's worse than a constitutional crisis. The country is in crisis. And when I pointed out that the guy who worked for Tesla at the beginning of this meeting, Matt, they're killing his baby. Well, democracy is all our babies. And if you're not really disturbed about this, well, you're just not paying attention. And I'll have some whatever you're drinking. Anyway, that's the political director's report. sorry it can't be more up, but it seems like awful things are going on in our country. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellis. And yes, Ellis mentioned SB 42, the Clean Money Act, that they actually had their campaign launch in Berkeley on Sunday, I believe. I was there along with, I know, a couple of folks on this call. Kyoko, I saw, was there. Renee was there. But it was great. A lot of great speakers. Assembly member Alex Lee was there. He's a main co-author of the bill on the assembly side. It was a great
You
event.
didn't want to go.
Let's see here. Where is Alan? Is Alan still on here? There he is. Alan, do you have a treasurer's report? Alan, are you on? Alan, if you're talking, you're on mute, so we can't hear you. All right, well, maybe we can circle back to him.
Regarding that payment, I did talk to Alan, gave him the address. So I know that he did mail a check. I don't know if it's cleared yet, but he did take care of that, Ellis. We could go ahead and move on. We'll send out the the current balances. I don't think there's been a whole lot of changes. I don't think we had a lot of expenses or anything this month. So it's pretty much what it was last month, but we'll include that with the minutes when we send it out. And I guess open it up to new business at this point. If anybody has any new business?
Or any announcements, if anybody wants to make an announcement.
Indivisible is going to be in the rodeo parade. If anybody has a convertible vintage car, they reached out to me, but the Packard has a big exhaust issue, and I think it kind of choked out the young kids at Jerry McNerney's when he marched in the parade last year. So they are looking for somebody that has a classic car that might be interested in driving the Livermore Indivisible team in the rodeo parade. So let me know if you have any.
And Jackie, can you tell us a little bit more about the rodeo parade? When is it and what is it?
The rodeo is, gosh, Livermore's been having the rodeo in town for over 100 years. The first rodeo, they ran the cattle all the way from Oakland, is my understanding, over the hills, down into Livermore Valley. And it's been a tradition. Livermore is a cow town. We have a lot of ranchers and farmers. One of our high schools, it's Livermore Cowboys. So, you know, it's we have a weird culture here mixed with scientists and cowboys. And let's see, Livermore Rodeo. It's usually the first weekend in June. Let me just look up the date. Livermore Rodeo.
Trish has her hand up. Trish, if you want to talk.
I know a little bit about the history. I don't know what the date is. I think it's actually the second weekend in June.
Yeah, it's the 14th is the rodeo parade, and then the 14th and 15th is the days. There's 2 days of rodeos. And so there's a lot of entries in the parade.
Yeah, it goes on for a long, the rodeo itself goes on for a long time, but it began in 1918, and it was Livermore's way of raising money to support the Red Cross during World War I, which is why there we have a park and why we have the statue of the guy going from cowboy to fighter, because he's going off to fight in World War I. So it's gone on for that length of time. The money that's raised in the rodeo parade gets donated. I don't remember who, but it all gets donated And the reason that it started, was because that was the only way this little cow town could think of to raise the money that they'd been asked to raise to give to, to those who were saving lives. So it's, it's an interesting little thing. It's also not the only rodeo around. Hayward Recreational District does that as well. So there's several rodeos that harken back to this early history of this part of the valley. That has come up. Anyway, that's my, and most of that I got from the Stockman's page, where they'll tell you the history in detail.
And John
Also in
Marchand
the chat.
had a nice speech. I remember one day, he mentioned this. Thanks for reminding me.
Who did?
John Marchand.
Oh, I'm sure he did. I'm sure.
Yeah, that was, I forgot about that.
Yeah. June 15th, Sunday, June 15th is Father's Day.
Yep.
Yeah, that's when the demonstration is.
Yep. Okay. That's all I have, Richard.
Thanks, Jackie. I just want to amplify what Christy put in the chat. The Juneteenth Festival in Livermore is on June 21st, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Bankhead Plaza. Livermore Indivisible will have a booth there. Any other announcements or things people want to say before we close out?
Can I ask Christy a quick question about the booths at the Juneteenth? Would they allow would they allow TV Dims to have a booth?
I believe so. I'll send you the link and you can submit it and the group will let you know.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I know the rodeo isn't a good place to table because people are like, get off the sidewalk. You're taking up space. The rodeo is not the time. I don't do any tabling during the rodeo usually.
Livermore Indivisible, I think, is there every year, and we've had ACLU, so I think political is fine.
Great. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks.
And I think what is it? Trump's big bad budget's getting out of committee now, and they're trying to cram it through on a vote. 1,000 pages, and no one's had time to read it. No one's had time to evaluate the fiscal impact. If Dems have some influence, but if you know any Republicans who might be influenced, now's the time to do it.
Thank you, Mark. Any other announcements from anyone? Cool. All right. Well,
Nice job, Richard.
For the first time in a long time, we're not only out of here on time, we're out of here early, which is great. But Jackie, let me know if we are adjourning in memory of anybody.
I don't know. I don't know of anybody today. Does anybody would like to close with them?
We just heard on the news that former supervisor in Contra Costa County, Federal Glover, has passed away. And he was a liberal champion. Chanel Scales Preston has just replaced him in the last cycle. He was 69 years old. So I've met him once or twice, but certainly a liberal champion in Contra Costa County.
Thank you, Ellis. We will adjourn then in honor of former Supervisor Federal Glover. The time is 8:49. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for a great meeting.
Thank you.
Thank
Nice
you.
job,
Good night.
Richard. Thank you.